listening to Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond, contemporary conversations where stories, science, traditions and new ideas meet. Our podcast is coming to you from Bundjalung country at Cavanbar or Byron Bay, and we acknowledge with respect and reverence Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation and neighbouring clans and people for caring for this country since time immemorial. Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond is part of a wider media and journalism project. You can find out more about us at pbbmedia.org. That's pbbmedia.org. I'm Oni Blecher, and in this episode I'm speaking with Sandra Bucher. Sandra is a high-level performance and life coach, coming from Holland and now living in Australia, specialising in optimising relationship with self and others. This includes effective communication and how to connect more thoroughly and respectfully with self and others. Sandra works with people of all ages, but has a special ability and affinity with working with children and infants, allowing and encouraging them in various ways to communicate their needs and desires. During this conversation, we cover many topics, but most importantly, how parents can help support their children in connecting with themselves and communicating effectively. We also speak about how parents can support their own learning experiences, communicating with their children, and the web-like symbiosis of families. Enjoy this conversation. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us here today on PBB.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so looking forward to having this conversation with you around your various skills and abilities, communicating with human beings, but more so your experience with children and infants and around how you open up the education really of how to look at that way of communication in a different perspective than perhaps what we've been trained to believe is the appropriate way to communicate with children. And, before we begin and get right into the questions, how did you first realize that you had the ability to kind of see humans or see a way of communicating in a way that others potentially didn't?
Already when I was a little child, I felt that I had a very high sensitive experience about what's happening in my environment. And I was talking about it, but the others around me couldn't really experience it in that way. So, I was just keeping it in. Back then, I was a little bit afraid of what I was sharing, that it would not be seen as the truth. But later on, when I went through the stages in my life, I could see that the things I was seeing were very clear. And if I really was asking the person about the things that are happening, and went very deep with my questions, always the answer came up, yes, actually what you're seeing and experiencing is what I experienced as well. I didn't thought about it. I wasn't conscious about it. So for me, all of my life, from the younger years on, it was already an experience like that.
And you are a high performance coach for all people of all different ages. And when you work with adults or children, do you work in the same way, or do you take a different approach depending on what age someone is?
Yeah, when I work with a little child, sometimes we don't talk with each other. So telepathically, I understand what the ideas, the feelings, the emotions, the thoughts are about within the child, because telepathically I can tune in and ask the child what the experience is, what wants to come out and wants to be expressed. And just by asking that, I get a very deep knowledge and insight what I could forward to the outside world. So this is the way how I work with little children, also with babies. I look into their body signals, and then by tuning in that, feeling them, but also seeing them moving their bodies, I get a lot of information that I could use as well to give the parents a teaching or a support in what's going on within the child. And when I work with adults, it's just communication as well. Also by body work, I can read the body signals, as well as just a feeling, deeper knowing of what's happening within the adult. And also by communicating, of course, with words, asking questions, then we can go very deep into what wants to be experienced, what wants to be shared, or what is under pressure at the moment, what wants to be created. Or if an adult cannot really express her or himself, then I can support in how to find the words to come forward with the message.
Sounds like very sensitive and beautiful work. And I'm wondering, I have this feeling that, well, I guess it's a belief that we really underestimate young people or young humans, whether it's babies or infants or children. And does your work, in a sense, I mean, I was listening to your experience as a child and how you understood things beyond what the people around you comprehended that you could understand. And when you work with children, do you have this sense that you're letting them believe that what they see and understand is real and true?
Well, I honor their feelings and what they're seeing, especially to ask them, to invite them to come outside the closet, to really share what it's about, what's happening in their lives. It's important. It's always essential to really go for the first experience that they have, but sometimes they are acting from out of fear and not out of trust. And then fear becomes a creation. It's a creative engine, but it contains not always the truth. So we have to go through it. What's really coming from truth telling, and what's really coming from this fear that you have because you have created something in your mind, in your being, that's not really aligned with the highest truth. So yes, taking it making it very important what they share, because their life is just their life, is what is going through their mind, through their bodies. It's important to make that part of a discussion. And then when there is something not really aligned, just go deeper and deeper with questioning, and then the child can find out itself, oh, this is not really the truth. I can change it around. So you really take the child with it in the new thinking. So it feels that it's part of the creation, and it feels as well that it's really responsible for an own creation in the next moment again.
And you know, when we're young, we're shaping so many of our core belief systems and learning how to relate to others and relate to ourselves. So what's it like working with people at this age where you know that you're really influencing, you know, opening a way to communicate, or a way that their parents can communicate with them? And do you also find it interesting to work with parents because of this too?
Yes, they're just part of one family. So if there's a change in the one, then there's also change in the other one. So you have to bring them together so that their synergy can really start become a very positive motivation for them as well, to keep on communicating with each other and with themselves. So it's like a whole relation of the whole family that you need to involve. And it becomes a platform, right? And you can only be successful within a platform if everyone is there living their highest potential, living their highest truth, and is very at ease with themselves and very balanced with themselves as well. So each one of them should be feeling okay with what's going on. So yes, I go to the parents, yes, I go to the child, but I can be a communicator for the child, as a mediator for the parents as well, and as also for the child. So they all have maybe a different story, but we have to bring that together until it becomes one story. It's not that that the ideas have to be the same, but there has to be co-creation at the end that ends up in something that everyone can say yes to. Otherwise, you have no's in different directions. You cannot really enter the finish line.
And is it very unique and individual for every different family dynamic, or do you see that there's one recurring reason why this synergy is lost, or why this disharmony is created within a family dynamic?
Yeah, sometimes it's just time, not enough involvement. Not enough insight in what's going on. Sometimes the consciousness is different between family. Sometimes there is not really the same intentions as well. So this all needs to be coming together. It needs to be expressed. So then, we can make a plan. And emotions and feelings and thoughts are changing every moment. So it's really important to understand the communication tools that also for children, also for parents, are there available to use them well and to be really intelligent about what you're doing. Especially parents need to find a very supportive attitude towards their children, because they are smaller, of course, and they need to grow up. Also, they're very not independent. They're very vulnerable still, because if the parent falls away, then they don't have that support or that strong empowerment to survive. So unconsciously, they also feel that they really need someone there with them. Otherwise, they won't survive. So parents need to know that. It's important. It's essential. Yeah.
I guess on a broader social perspective, things are always changing in how we approach child rearing and how to communicate with children, and depending on what country you're in or what decade you're living in, this is always changing. And I know that one thing that you advise is to give the child enough space to explore their own authentic emotions, feelings, thoughts, ideas for self-empowerment and also self-trust. And I wonder what is a way to give a child that space? Is it physical space or is it an emotional space? And does this vary with the child's age?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if there's space for a child, it of course can experience its own feelings and its own self-discoveries, explorations. So it can build up an own network from within, coming by heart, coming by intelligence, coming by a good body experience as well, to find its place in a situation. And that's really important, because if you as a parent are very influencing the child with an own idea about things, then the child can not really undergo the whole process of learning from A to Z how it would like to respond to situations in a unique way. So it does something with the authentic experience. That's why it's so important that parents could just watch their child and see when it's going over boundaries that are not healthy anymore. Then they can step in and they can show the child what could be possible. But then again, you give possibilities, and you're not saying this is what you should do. If it really becomes dangerous, of course, then you can step in and say, no, we're not going to do this because it's not good for you.
So it's quite simple in the sense of that space is being in the question instead of telling anyone. It doesn't have to be a child, or this is what's happening right now. It's like, whoa, what do you think about this? Or how do you see this?
Yeah, what you also could do as a parent is inviting the child to think about things. So it's beautiful to have this discussion when the child is old enough, and that depends on the ages as well. So it's important to look into that, what is possible for every child within their unique possibilities, because every child has a different unique blueprint within a certain age. They can have the same age, but they can have a unique blueprint in this. So tuning into the child itself in a very unique way, and to find out what is working out for this child. And maybe you can even ask the child what it needs as well. So you introduce again the child into an exploration together. You make it responsible, and you give it the feeling as well that's important what it's feeling. So by tuning in that way, you ask the child to inform the parent what it needs and how it wants to be relating in certain things. And then as a parent, you can just feel into that as well. And of course, you can give your own experience to the child. You can share that. But it's really important that you feel that the child feels, okay, I'm receiving it in my way. And I am negotiating a little bit, having an inner dialogue with myself. And now I'm going to use this and that, but not everything. I'm going to do it my way. I think it's really a beautiful way to give a child a transition experience through life and grow up in a very unique, authentic way. And also find out what his or her authority is. Because then a child learns how to express itself through his own feelings and ideas. And this is of course a very strong empowerment for the child also when it's relating to other children or other adults. He just knows how to create relating through his own identity. But it's absolutely very important that the parents are involved as well. I don't want to say the parents are not important anymore. I'm just saying that, yes, include yourself as being the parent, of course, but know that there is an inner living within the child as well, and just appreciate that and value that as much as you can.
And what I'm hearing also from what you're saying is this very early encouragement for a being to understand what their needs are. Often I hear so much, I mean, in right now, a lot of adults are really not sure what they need because they've never really felt into their needs properly. And so to be able to encourage that from an early age, even if you think you know what a child needs with clothing and shelter and everything, you know, to be able to train this knowing of what do I need right now and right now and right now. You just talked about the importance of parents, and I'm wondering how you see the mother-baby or the father-baby bond as an opportunity to heal through work such as yours. So that time of bonding with the baby is such a potent time for a parent to understand their self through honoring their baby's behaviors and their baby's ways of communicating. Do you find this is such a reciprocal healing time?
Yeah, I think there are a few elements that are very important in healing work on its own, in every practice. Also, when you're not going to a coach or another practitioner, just in life itself, it's important to feel value about what is happening. So to validate it in a good way, to validate it by heart, and to see to find the balance in everything that you're doing. So that's really important for a good lifestyle within a family. So if you can, you have to look into the balance for the children itself and for the parents as well. And the parents need to learn that themselves to create the balance within themselves, but also to learn the child how to bring balance into their lives. For example, they need to take the child upon journeys like activations, sport, being with other children, going to school, learning a lot, but also to give them the knowledge that it's important to relax, to be passive sometimes, and just to find to also, well, I don't have to say television, for example, but there are many other things that you can introduce into the life of the child to find out how to become more relaxed and passive. So finding the balance is really important that parents need to do, and that's especially my work as well. Find out how can you bring balance into yourself, into your emotional life, into your thinking, into your belief systems, into the relations, into your own time, how much time do you need for yourself, how much time do you need for your family to find, and for your work as well. How can you find balance in this? And then forward this to your child in the child language, of course. So everyone is responsible. So we go to find out what is the balance that you need inside, and then what kind of actions do you need to bring balance into the family, and also how can you inspire yourself and your family to create those beautiful homey moments of being together, that you are really spending time with each other and having fulfilling love moments with each other, relating by holding each other, giving each other hugs, sending beautiful messages out, messages of love. All those things are also very important. So balancing, also creating the loving atmosphere within the family, and of course finding out who are you really. So the child and the parent needs to express who they really are, what is their passion, what do they love about life, how could we help each other out and support each other to become the best version within the family by following our passions and doing what really is important for us as well. So living our intentions.
And finding balance, or finding the balance between yourself and another or within, it takes time. And I guess in that time, you should be open to the learning the stretching of learning that. And I know when we spoke, you mentioned that we should let ourselves experience failure and other challenges to learn how to overcome these growth stretches in relating. And how would you encourage someone to embrace that they might not know everything right now, and that it's okay to take time to find that balance?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's part of life, isn't it? To just really fall down and step up. And also you can feel very much empowerment with falling down and then stepping up again, because you reinforce yourself through your own sources or by sometimes being supported by another. So when a child is cycling and is falling off the bike, then when it's standing up and it starts cycling again, it's a beautiful experience for a child, and it will be remembered. It will be remembered by the body, by the heart, by the intelligence, the brain intelligence. So that always. So it's important to give the child that experience, that it can do it on its own, for also again the experience of creating balance, and just knowing how to think and of a strategy to become successful again. I think that's really beautiful to give that experience. But if it's not possible, then it's very beautiful that the parent could stand by and support the child if it's necessary to have the success experience. Eventually, it's important to have a success experience also through failure. Mm-hmm. So when a child is falling down off the bike, you can just talk about it. You can just talk about this. This is something. It's okay to have this feeling about falling down, or just step up again. Just make it a beautiful, create a beautiful moment that it's just part of life, and that we all have our cycles of going up and down and ending cycles, renewing cycles. So I think it's a beautiful way of following the natural course that we all have as well. We are pointing and directing to a certain situation that we would like to have and succeed in this. But if it's not happening, then we get really in a fuss if we're not learning how to overcome our failures and to really appreciate them. But it's important not to have the same failure again. So it doesn't, I wouldn't say it's the biggest thing that you should avoid, but I would say it's beautiful to embrace that if you have a failure and you go through it and you learn from it, that you don't have it again. That's, of course, the biggest success that you can have.
And the same goes for parents in their journey of parenting too. Is it healthy to communicate that they are having a bit of a falling down moment to their children, and that they're still learning as well?
Yeah, well, if I experience that in the practice when I'm doing the coaching with parents, I experience that they have an own inner child within themselves that is very much afraid or not happy with the failure within themselves, and they project it on their child. So it's important to go through that experience, and maybe they have not really worked it out yet with their parents. So it's important to find first the balance within the parents and work things out, and then they can, with a clear mind and a clear vision, look in the own identity and unique moments of their child.
And does this therefore mean that both child and parent can then communicate their authentic self, because they're not hiding their imperfection?
No, if the child is ready to receive the parents, they can also talk about it. Of course, it's not a bad thing that the parents are also emotional, moved by things. I think it's beautiful. I think it's being part of a family. Just talk about it, clarify what's happening. A child can learn from it as well, and they can just say, "Oh, Mama, also are feeling. I also would like to feel more." Right? It's a beautiful motivation and inspiration as well.
So, an idea or an example of your way of translating body talk or body communication for children and babies, is there an example in your work of a specific body movement or body communication that then you're translating to parents? Or how do you see this translation or deep listening affecting a child's life going forward from your personal experience as a therapist or a coach?
Yeah. Thank you for this question. Somehow it really moves me that you ask me this. Well, what I'm doing is just sitting with a child or with a parent. But if we talk about the child, I'm just sitting with it. I'm just feeling that I'm very much inspired by the child. So I just want to know it. I just have a very deep connection created because of that. Who are you? What would you like to bring out in the world? What is not really supporting you in this moment? How can I support you? What is your highest interest? So I'm asking many questions to give a certain signal to the child that I want to learn from it, that I want to feel it, that I want to share my interest. Because if you share your interest with the child, the information comes up. Because she or he will feel very passionate about themselves, and then come out of a little corner, maybe. Right? It's just like, oh, I'm part of the game. You like me? Oh, then I'm going to show more of me because I'm adorable, actually. Mm-hmm. So you're giving a lot of information, and you're really empowering the child to become itself and to show the identity of the child. Mm. So that's really beautiful and also bring a lot of love aspects in it. So you feel that you are connecting, because without any judgment, any ideas that you have, just really open through an unconscious mind, just looking at the child and inviting it to show up. And the way I'm doing it is by words. I'm asking through words, yes, but also just by using energy. So I'm sharing my energy, and I'm letting the child know I'm building up this exciting energy within me, and this feeling of I have all the time that there is. It's all about you and me right now. And that information is always being received by children. They feel it. They feel that you give them space to be, and then they come. Also, children who are very scared and very afraid of showing themselves, eventually it takes some time, but they will always come when you're sending out this true feeling of, I want to get to know you. Who are you? Share yourself with me.
I like that a lot. I can really feel the richness of your experience connecting with young people. One thing that really interests me and that you wanted to talk about also is the honoring of children's sensitivity or sensitivities and their wishes for boundaries. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
About boundaries, you say? The first sentence?
Honoring children's sensitivities and also their wishes for boundaries. So, yeah, I'd love to know a bit more.
All right. Yeah. Well, if children are very sensitive, they need boundaries sometimes. I think every child needs boundaries, but the more they become very sensitive within themselves, sometimes they need more boundaries as well, because they are overwhelmed by the energy of information that's coming from the outside world. And especially when children are very much focused on what their environment is doing, because they want to do good, don't want to be bad, they want to control somehow also their environment, they become even more sensitive to what's happening in the outside world because they want to control it somehow. Mm-hmm. So they're tuning in what's happening outside of me, because I want to find out how to act upon that. Then I feel safe. Then I feel secure with what is happening. So the more children are sensitive, mostly they are more controlling and finding out how to deal with the things and acting upon fear. And for those children, it's really important to offer them boundaries and to talk with them about boundaries, or share through an energy intelligence by sharing your energy. I can share more about that. It's a different topic. But you can share through body knowledge, through your body signals with your child, that it's important to boundary itself, or to experience boundarying itself. So maybe sometimes you have to say, this is the boundary, stop here. Or maybe you say, well, we can just go a bit further now. You have been very fearful here, but maybe we could just take one step further, and then you will see it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so scary as you thought it would be. So it's like tuning in the child, giving it expression what's happening, and find out what is really the need of the child. And also take care of the sensitivity.
How would you approach that conversation around boundaries. Do you sense that children understand what boundaries are even before you explain it? And what's an example of that kind of conversation?
Yeah. Well, that is a difficult, it's a challenging thing because you have to really understand the child. You have to find out what's happening. Some children are very happy to work with dolls. So you have a doll, a woman, for example, a woman doll and a man doll, and you play with them. And then you can see what are the boundaries here for you as a little girl when you are playing with your masculine friends or with an older masculine person. Sometimes they are a bit afraid because they don't understand that the rough play or whatever is happening. So it's important then to play with dolls, for example. Sometimes you have Lego. What's the English word for it?
Yeah, Lego. Yeah.
Lego. Yeah. So you can play with the men, for example, the younger men, to play with that. How for you build up a Lego, and then somebody is throwing it aside. So the whole building that you just built up has been taken down. That's also, there's a boundary in it. So you have to talk about those situations that you can show the child. What are you sharing when somebody's doing that to your building? What can you say? How can you express your feelings, your motivations, your thoughts about that experience? So then you can just learn the child about communication and through a play again. Another thing is also drawing. It's also very beautiful. Like drawing, what is your boundary? Could you draw that for us? Just give them the playfulness to find out with what kind of material they would like to express themselves, and especially just feel into the whole the experience in words, and how would you like to have the experience outwards? Can you communicate this with the material or with your words to show the outside world what's really important for you? That's actually the whole thing.
Thank you.
Did this answer your question?
Definitely. Very helpful and practical too. So you talk about communication and transparency and how we should allow a child to talk their truth, and for us to talk our truth with a child as much as possible to create more self-trust and self-respect. And so why does speaking your truth create that self-trust and self-respect? And why is that important, especially for children?
Yeah, because transparency is everything. That's actually who we are. So we're not playing a game. We're not underpressing anything. We're not trying to be something. We're not creating something that's not there. We're just expressing ourselves as who we are. And that's, of course, the most strongest power, because then we are in our source energy. We are in alignment with what really wants to come through. We are in alignment with our feelings, our needs, our desires, our wishes. So to become that and to express that is, of course, the highest alignment that we could offer our children and ourselves. It's empowerment from within, and comes it has a follow-up of the power from outside, because, of course, the other one will mirror the same frequency, the same experience. Again, is what the idea is, of course. Yeah, you support the other to also become visible and to also become transparent. Doesn't mean that if you are transparent and very visible, that the other one is receiving you completely as you are in that, or doing it the same way. But I can imagine that if you bring yourself out there again and again and again, that other people start trusting that, or already trusted it in the first place, but are also creating that same experience with you. It's just a motivation, but don't expect anything of the outside world. Just only be responsible for your own manifestation, and then you will see what comes out of it. But when you are already supporting a child from an earlier age to do it like this, and also you are acting upon your true beliefs, then of course the whole family condition will be much more blooming and flowered because of the transparency.
I can visualize it so well. It's like you can see that as a kaleidoscope, and a healthy, functioning family in their truth. And I guess specifically to your experience, what are some of the most inspiring experiences or cases that you've had with clients? Nothing that would breach any confidence, but just generally, what inspires you the most with your clients?
That's again moving me very beautifully. I experience the most beautiful moments with the clients, especially children who cannot really talk. So children who are very autistic or have a certain difficulty with expressing themselves. Can also be adults, by the way, if they have difficulties with their throat area, something is happening there, a blockage, or they are have been in an accident, for example, and they cannot really express themselves through words. To tune in and to find out what can I feel in their body signals, what can I see in the needs that they have, the basic needs, and how can I support them in the best way that I can. So I mediate between them and the person who is involved as well. I think the most beautiful thing. Also working with babies is really beautiful, because babies they don't have the expression yet, the expression tool, and parents are sometimes really wondering what's happening with my child. It's crying all the time. It doesn't really look very open through their eyes. They're not really connecting with me. I would like to find out what's happening, and then I tune in, and then I see what's going on, and I can share that. And then a few days later, or maybe even the same day, I can see that the child is changing, and the whole relation is changing within the household. So it becomes more balanced and peaceful, and much more harmony is happening. So that's of course very beautiful.
I can feel the expanse of that relationship, and it must just be so joyful for the baby and also for the family. And we've come to the end of the interview, but I have one more question. And after all we've spoken about and who you are right now today, do you have any specific advice for mothers, fathers, parents, or people learning how to communicate authentically?
Well, to honor themselves in the first place, to respect themselves, and that could be an education on its own and development on its own. So take your time for that and follow step by step the path that you have chosen. And otherwise, if you cannot really step out of it yourself or go through it yourself, then just ask a coach always with you. I think everyone needs a coach. We all need a coach sometimes, maybe more coaches even in our life, to just follow us. And sometimes you fall away after a few months or a certain period, and then you take another coach. But it's always important to have somebody can mirror you with outside the family, outside the very private involvements. So that's one thing that I would really like to share, because sometimes you're blindfolded and you really need to go through those places where you are blocked to find out what the higher truth is or wants to be experienced. So that's first, the two elements, honor yourself, be respectful with yourself. And also the third one, just ask somebody else to mirror you, reflect together, not bringing the finger to the other one. Always take your own responsibility for things. So this will empower you the most, of course, because you're not giving the power to somebody else, and you keep it with yourself. So you are the owner of your creation. And also always look into how can I self-master myself more. So how can I become the best version in my life even more, by really feeling into yourself and looking into the way you're thinking and your belief systems, and knowing how the new experiences are received by you as well. Because if you are in this development, it's also important to receive the new and to let go of the old. And that could be a difficulty sometimes for people. They don't know how to step forward because the unknown is super unpredictable and super scary. So just also figure out for yourself, how can you make this process very lovable? That's like a little baby that you're carrying and it wants to grow up. Just give yourself the time in your life plan or in your career or in your family constitution just to really evolve by passion and fun, and so accept the failures. It's part of co-creation.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And for our listeners, where can they find you? If you could direct them of where to connect with you if they're interested in your work and what you've been talking about.
Yes, they can find me in the media channels. I've got a website, getpromotedlive.com. I support people in their private lives as well as in their career lives with a life plan or a career plan to find out how they can evolve within certain topics, or even the whole situation needs to change. They need an upgrade in their lives. I support them to become successful. And sometimes the children are also involved in this. And I really love to work with children. So either for children as well as for adults, they're very welcome to look into the website, getpromotedlive.com, as well as the Instagram or the Facebook.
Can you say your website one more time? I didn't get that.
Getpromotedlive.com.
Okay, getpromotedlive.com. Wonderful. And do you have an email as well? Or?
Yeah, it's info@getpromotedlive.com.
Okay, so that's info@getpromotedlive.com. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for all the gifts and wisdom that you've shared today. And I look forward to letting that all sink in and understanding how I can communicate better with all of those around me. So thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me, and I really had a very beautiful time. So thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you for listening today. I'm Oni Blecher, and I hope you've enjoyed that conversation with Sandra Bucher. Please find our other podcast episodes through Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond on your favourite podcast providers.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond. Tune in next week for more information and inspiration, bringing us full circle. You can find our show on iTunes, Spreaker, the usual social media under Pregnancy, Birth and Beyond, and our website at pbbmedia.org.